Okay, let's talk a little bit, and do mean a little bit because there's not much to talk about in terms of just setting up your project so that you can export it off to the iPhone for submission to Apple. And this is mostly just has to do with the publish settings that you set up here, okay? And we'll use a project that I was just working on that had to do with the accelerometer. So, you guys can kind of prove this concept early on that this does actually work. I exported out the application and dropped it onto iTunes. I didn't go through the store or anything like that. Just did a quick little test publish. And look at this. Here it is on my actual phone here. Oh, worst logo ever. It's backwards, but that's just what's going to have to happen here. So anyway, you can see that definitely the accelerometer is behaving as it was in the tutorial. If you watched that of how this was coded, it wasn't that too was not actually that much work, which is always encouraging to do something kind of fancy for. Well, I always think of it for free because the code is so easy. So there it is. It looks like a little marble rolling around on top of my device. So that's pretty cool. All right, let's go and export this little guy out, and we will talk about what you need to do. Okay, so step one, if you want to kind of do these in steps, obviously go over to Flash and set up a new project, and you're going to go with iPhone OS, or at some time later you could just change your publish settings to be for the iPhone OS. And let's go over here to publish settings. So if you did already have a project you'd set up, you could pull it down from here. And then let's look at the settings for this. And I'm almost getting close to losing a bunch of people because the key thing, or one of the key things, is going to be under here with deployment. And you are going to need to sign up with Apple and pay them about $100 to get some certificates and provisioning profiles to actually to test it, but also to eventually submit it to the store. So let's go and look at those things that you need in just a moment. But if you want to go back over here to general, these are all kind of obvious. The output file name, this is going to be the file that you end up dropping into iTunes. It'll get created. It's like a little application. And then the app name, that's kind of obvious. Version, another obvious thing, just you can put in whatever you want there, but you do have to keep in mind when you are submitting something to Apple, I'm pretty sure they do match up the version numbers to what you tell them your version is going to be. So if you say it's going to be 1.0, pretty certain that needs to be 1.0 over here. Aspect, portrait, or landscape, two options there. I haven't messed around with clicking either of these on or off, but they should be kind of obvious. Auto orientation. So if you were to flip the device, it's going to orientate to portrait mode if it's in portrait mode. And then full screen, I'm not even positive. That might have to do with the I don't know, maybe the iPad if it just blows up. But one of us will find out at a later date. Rendering auto. I've set this to obviously, I've set to auto here. You got a CPU, GPU. Again, not something I've really played around with the difference. And then device, iPad, iPhone, and iPad. So that's kind of cool. And then included files. So if there were things that you were bringing in, like let's say I'd loaded up a JPEG dynamically, stuff like that, you'd throw inside of there. But again, it all just kind of packages it out to this application file, and that's the meat of it in the end. Okay, so let's go and talk about the deployment. I'm going to need to switch over to sign into my developer account with Apple. Okay, so you want to find your way to this link and just click on the enroll in the developer program. It is just that $99 a year. It'll be worth it if you somehow make an application that sells millions of copies. Once you've done that, you can then log in and find your way to the Dev Center. And from here, you'll go over here to your provisioning portal, and we're going to take a look at certificates first. You've got two options here, your development certificate and your distribution certificate. You're going to export out both of them the same way. For development, You'll use this just for testing your application, like when you install it on your own phone. And then ultimately, you're going to want to use your distribution certificate to sign your application that's going to get submitted to Apple, and which is not something that I've actually done yet. I haven't made a Flash CS5 exported application and sent it off to Apple. So not 100% certain that is the case, but from everything I've read, that is true. So, but for right now, just go with development. You're going to want to download this guy, and when you do, you're going to get this certificate file. Actually, you know what? Let's just go ahead and do a little fake download here. Sorry, so you're going to get something like developer underscore identity .cer. You're going to then find that file, and you can probably just double click it, but you could drop it into your application called Keychain Access, in which case then you're going to have something like this. Okay, so here it is. You're just your keychain, and then you will go over here to File, Export Items. Okay, and this file format is this Personal Information Exchange. It's .p12. Click on Save, and I would just put it someplace where you're not going to get rid of it later. Okay, so like a lot of times I'll put things to my desktop and I'll just go trash everything on the desktop because I figure it's kind of like the step before the trash. It's the desktop. But you might want to put it in like documents or something like that, someplace you know that you're not going to go clean house. Once you do hit save, it's going to ask you for a password, and that is important. You do want to remember that because, and I'm just going to cancel through everything here. They're asking for the password here, and unfortunately, they don't keep this in here. All right, you can remember the password for this session, but then when you close down, it doesn't keep it in there. All right, bummer. But that'll take care of that, and then the next thing you want to look at is your provisioning profile. And again, that is going to be over here. All right, and this will be something that you just create a new profile for, and I've been using this, just one called Fatbird. It's just some application I haven't done anything else with yet. So that's why I was using that one. And again, same kind of deal here. If you're just developing, you're going to go through development one. Your distribution one is a different one. Okay. But again, you just download them. Where's my download window? Downloads. And you get something like this, Fatbird distribution. Okay, so you just want to find that file, keep it someplace safe, and then you will locate it through here. And then the other thing is your, actually, you know what, let me not skip over that just yet. This file, too, you're going to need to add to iTunes. Okay, so if we are back over here in iTunes, which I'm going to have to load up. Okay. Let's see. Just go over here to the store real fast. You're going to go and add to library. Okay. And you're going to find that that file. Okay, so just add it in there like so, and that will complete your duties with the provisioning profile. And then yes, finally, let's take a look at the app ID name, and I need to get back over to where I was previously. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. App IDs. Okay, you are going to want to make a new app ID, and let's see, where was the one I made for this guy? All right, so let's go over to configure. All right. You get to choose this part of it. You don't get to choose that part of it. But this is the part that you just want to remember. And they recommend you go with this reverse domain name thing that I'm doing here. So that's com, then .cartoonsmart, then the name of the application. And that is, as you can see, that part right there. And then that gives it a unique application name. And even though that this application is not using it for stuff like in-app purchases, or let's say Game Center, that's more where your app ID would come in. So I think we've talked about everything there. Let's go over here to icons. Sure enough, you can throw in here a bunch of icons, and as you kind of click through here, you just go and locate them on your computer and add them as you will. Of course, this is some zombie icon, has nothing to do with the accelerometer game, but that takes care of I think everything to do with exporting this guy out. Well, we haven't actually done an export yet and dropped it into the phone, but I'll show that in just a moment. Okay, so I just exported this guy out. I did get my password in there for the certificate, and I managed to actually pick out the right password. I need to write it down. And then it takes about 30 seconds to publish. I'm not going to do it on screen here, but the fruits of my labor have been to create this .ipa file here, and you will double click on it, or you can just drop it into iTunes, or the logo for iTunes, and it'll ask if you want to replace it. You do want to replace it. Sometimes, though, that doesn't really replace it. So if that happens, what you want to do is delete out the application on your phone itself. Okay, so hold down, make your icons shake, and then delete it. And then if you do have to go and go that route, you'll need to be sure that back under here, under apps, you go and you find the application in question, and be sure that it is checked back off to install itself again. Okay, so make sure, because it'll look like that if otherwise. And then you should be good to go. You do, of course, you have to sync it back up, and you will have an application on your phone. And then don't forget too that right now I'm using the development certificate and the development mobile provisioning profile. So if and when you do decide to submit something to Apple, you're going to want to switch those off to your distribution versions of all those. But that brings us to the end. So I hope this was insightful.